You're sitting across from a potential client. Your client is visibly uncomfortable, you can tell it, but you don't know why, which often leads to you making assumptions about yourself and not being good enough or your pricing being too high when it might not even be that. Here's what most photographers miss. People who are making buying decisions don't all make it the same way. And if you're talking to all of them the same way that you make decisions, not only are you likely not going to make the money you want, you're not serving the client in the way that they need to be served in order to make saying yes super easy. Likely you're making the process so much harder than it needs to be. Profitable photographers know that it's not about just taking better photos, but it's about understanding the buying psychology of their clients. They know how to speak to a quick decision maker differently than someone who needs more time to process. But how do you know who needs to be treated which way? That's what I'm breaking down today, okay? Because there are 4 types of photography clients based on the disc dimensions of human behavior. I'm going to show you what all 4 of them are, and then I'm going to show you how to talk to each one of them differently so that they can happily make decisions throughout the process and invest thousands of dollars with you. Listen, this is really cool because once you understand these 4 client types, selling will become effortless. Hey, I'm Sarah Petty, founder of Photography Business Institute, and over the last 27 years, I've built a multi-million-dollar photography business, and I really think a lot of the reason I had success is because one of my first jobs was in cold call sales, and I hated it, and I had to learn exactly how different clients buy. I've applied it to my photography business, and I've helped over 33,000 portrait photographers do the same. By the end of this video, you'll know how to identify which type you are, and then what type of client you're talking to so that you can adjust your approach so that you're helping them make faster decisions and making the process so much easier. Now, if you've ever heard of the DISC, D-I-S-C, it's a human behavior assessment that breaks down how people act, how they communicate, and even how they make purchasing decisions. This is actually a free assessment, at least right now while I'm making this video, and I'll put links in the description so you know where you can go and take that assessment because it may change, okay? But this assessment measures 4 key dimensions of human behavior. And as you learn about these, you will identify your own personal behavior, but more importantly, it will help you how your personality can mesh so nicely to help your clients better. And then I'm going to break down each one specifically for you as a photographer. D stands for dominant, which measures how you handle problems and challenges. I stands for influencer, and it measures how you interact and influence others. This is not an extrovert-introvert measure, okay? But your influencer, even though it starts with an I, really that's your extrovert, and I'll get to that. S stands for steadiness, which is measuring how you respond to change. And C stands for conscientious, which measures how you approach rule, structure, and accuracy. Once you take this assessment, it will tell you which letter you are. You might be 1 letter, you might be 2, you might be 3. I don't think anyone's ever been 4. And after I tell you these, you're probably going to know which ones are really in you. And you might have a little of each of them, but really it measures you on 1 to 99. And if you're over 50 as a number, that means that you are technically that letter, okay? So you might be an IS, you might be an SC, you might be a DI. Let's start with the D, the dominant. So people who have this as one of their strongest behavioral tendencies, they're what we call drivers. These are the people who are able to get the job done, no matter the obstacles. Think about people in your life, okay? So this style of person is super competitive, and many people who possess D were likely athletes. They're that player you want the ball to go to under pressure because they're just gonna ramrod it, right? You can recognize these types because they're likely in professions where time is money. Okay, they're entrepreneurs, they're managers, they're military leaders, they're attorneys, they're people who are responsible for hitting goals. And you could negatively say that sometimes these people just steamroll their way to get it done. And part of that is because their motto is get stuff done. Here's what this group cares about. And I find this group easy to sell to because they want the bottom line, right? They want to know what it is. Why do I need it? What does it cost? And cost isn't as much of an issue, or even how much time you spend with them. They want to get to the decision and they want to move on to their next challenge. They're usually pretty quick decision makers because they value their time above anything else. So to serve them, you want to get to the point as quickly as possible, okay? It's not you. Don't be like, oh my gosh, why are they in such a hurry? They just move through life on rabbit speed. They want the bottom line. Listen, I'm high D. D is my second highest. And I remember going shopping for a TV with my husband, which we don't typically go shopping together. And we went to a store where the salespeople work on commission because we knew that we would get better service. So we told them the 3 features we wanted. He told us, these are your 3 choices. We looked at them. We picked one. Literally, I told the sales guy, hey, meet me at the front counter. I have the credit card, while my husband pulls the car up. And Joe is like, I'm on it, because he's a little bit that way too. Fast is the name of the game. We didn't shop. We didn't go to 5 stores. Like, we just wanted the few features we wanted, and we weren't even considering price. This is held true in my photography business as well, with clients that I feel like in my mind are probably high D, right? They're entrepreneurs. And I had a realtor client who came in to pick out her frames, and she was amazing. I mean, she sold more houses than everyone else in town combined. So she's busy. Don't you agree? Of course. So we knew that she was a great decision maker. So we had an appointment for her to come in after her artwork came in to pick out her frames. And we had them all laid out with several choices with each piece of art. And she literally walked in. She was on the phone and she pointed down and she said, call my secretary for my credit card. Thanks. And she left. We weren't like, oh, she doesn't like us or anything. We didn't make up stories about it. We were like, that was easy. Sometimes we make it too hard. Just give people what they want, because time is money for her. And she felt very served. We didn't need to sit on the couch and visit or anything like that. She's selling houses, baby. So time is money. What's the biggest mistake photographers make with this type? Well, if you feel like that they have dominance as a behavioral tendency, if you're not prepared, if you're lollygagging and wasting their time talking too slowly, drawing out appointments, fumbling for things, friend, it's not going to end well. Like in my system, I teach my students the importance of rapport building with our clients. But with a fast moving type of client, like my kids always say, Mom, read the room. You got to read the room. If they come in a fizz and you're a really slow, mellow type of person, you might need to pick up your pace a little bit and show them that you respect their time as much as they do. And with my process that's very boutique, that client is going to appreciate that you've curated the images for them. Giving them 3,000 images in an online gallery to sort through is going to make them very frustrated, and likely they're just not going to do it. So they will appreciate you taking time to curate, hold their hand, walk them through making the decision so it's done. It's not that they don't want to spend the time, they just don't want to waste the time. And here's what's great is when you say, hey, here's my recommendation. I think this one, for example, would be great over your mantle about this size. They say, great. And I think these 50 would be fantastic in a book that you can have forever. They'll say, great. I love it. Here's my credit card as they're walking out the door. And I really love selling to this kind of person because I am this person. When I first started, I thought that everyone was like me, and I learned that they aren't really quickly. And my friend, that's a good thing. My husband always says, if we were all the same, it would be a very boring world. So we're not trying to change anyone. We're not trying to change ourselves. We're just trying to understand how people make decisions and serve them at a higher level. Make sense? Okay, so that's the D, quick and decisive. Let's get it done. Now let's talk about the next behavioral tendency, which I also have. This is my highest, and you can usually recognize this person because they're outgoing. They're talking all the time. I mean, I always got in trouble in school for that. So these are your influencers. I does not stand for introvert, okay? I want to make sure you're really clear on that. These actually are your extroverts. They're your influencers. They're your social butterflies likely. These are people who often show up in a fun way. You can recognize them. They're typically not super quiet. They know a lot of people. They're connected. They're persuasive. They're outgoing. They're optimistic. They love to have fun in all of the tasks that they do, and they want to make it fun for everyone else. So think about what careers these people likely have. Well, of course, they're in sales. Politicians are typically high I. In a Facebook group, a community manager, right? To keep the energy going. They might be in public relations. They might be performers. This is why spending more time with your clients before the ordering appointment is so important, because we've got to understand what style they are. Part of that is building rapport and finding an affinity, something we have in common. But we do that by asking questions. So, what do you guys do for a living? I love finding out what people do for a living because it gives me a lot of insight into how I can serve them as a photographer. So if I find out they're in sales, they're likely high I, okay? And high I people are big picture people. They're not always detail oriented people, and they get fueled by interacting with people, not slowing down and looking at every little detail. I'm actually a 99 I, and then I'm a lower D. I'm still over 50. I think I'm in the mid 60s. So as a high I like to have fun. I like to connect people. I like to find connections that I have with people. I feel like we're social beings and we want to network and build relationships. The motto of the I is to win others over. Let's make friends. Let's have fun together. Here's what high I's care about. We care about connection. We care about relationships, excitement over the experience, being social, being chatty. And the biggest mistake I think people make when they're serving high I's is that you don't need to drag I's into the details. Okay? They often don't care. They want to chat and have fun, but also can be easy to get distracted or off topic. Again, use these as a rule. We're not trying to put anybody in a box. We're trying to use this framework to understand how to serve people better. Okay, so if you're not staying focused on your process with a high I, it can lead to indecision or running out of time, or they hit decision fatigue and it's painful, and I's want to have fun. So they're going to just say, you know what, can we do this later? If you want to serve the high I, for sure you want to have fun with them and you want to feed off their energy. If you aren't a high energy person, and that's cool. You're going to build the connection. You're going to find an affinity. Who do you know that they know? During the consultation, you can draw that out. During the session, you can draw that out. When you get to the ordering appointment, the best way to serve a high I is to stay focused. Come with a plan, walk them through the decision. And like the people who are high in D, they're also pretty quick decision makers, which is nice because we only have 1 hour to sit with them and help them make their decision. You have less time for socializing. We've got to do that before the ordering appointment, which is what's great about how, as boutique photographers, that's how I've always run my business. And you'll understand with the S and the C why that is so important. But it is also with the I, right? Connecting, feeling like you're one with them, even if you're completely different, even if you have no I in you. You've got to understand what makes them click. You want to be clear with your pricing, with your recommendations. You want to keep them on track. And as you make recommendations, they're likely to say, I love it all. So fun. Let's do it. Right? Why do they buy easily? Because they're not caught up in details. They're influencers. They like to influence. They like to feel the room making progress. And as a high I love to buy, but I think it also makes me love to sell. I feel like it's a service. Both of them are, right? I love to be a great buyer. I love to be a great influencer of people. For the I client, you want to make sure you don't overwhelm them by getting into pulling out a measuring tape to show them how exactly many inches it is, or creating too many choices for them. Those details can drag them down, and then you take it as something personal, but it actually isn't even about you. They don't need those details to make the decision. You might be a high detail person, but that's going to overwhelm an I. So you say something like, oh my gosh, that wall portrait's going to look great wherever you put it. And they're going to say, great, let's do it. Now, if you're thinking, Sarah, this sounds great, but I'm not sure how to naturally chat with these types of clients and bring up conversations, especially in lead generation, I've got you covered. I've created a free guide called Matchstick Conversation Starters, guys. All you need is to start the conversation. But I know if you aren't a high I, that doesn't come naturally to you. So it's got specific questions that you can use to identify which disc type your client is while building rapport. Okay, and I'll stick that in the description below for you. Now, the next two types are where things get more detail oriented. So you want to have your information ready and be organized. These are the clients who make decisions with more care, and they want to know more details and they want more hand holding. This is why having a process that is step by step is so important. The S stands for steady supporter. Okay, this buyer style is calm, patient, loyal, dependable, team focused, right? Kumbaya. I'm very low on S. I always wonder where I was on the day patience was being handed out because I have none and no one in my family has it either. But that's okay, right? I can tap into my inner Sarah, you need to have patience today. And I told you I had a job in cold call selling early in my career, and it was brutal, but it changed me as a person because I had to learn how to connect with people who were very different than me. And I was selling advertising, and one of my good clients, this was one of the very few clients that they gave me to service. Mostly I had to go out and build these relationships, but I was given this as a client. So I just assumed, hey, she's already a client. I can just go in and take her order. Of course, being an ID, I love chatting with my clients, but the high D in me was competitive. I was like, I got to get to all these places and sell. But this particular client I know was a high S. She was about having trust and feeling seen and heard. And it was a retail store. She sold art, fine art. And she wanted me to come and meet with her multiple times before she was going to place her order, even though she knows what she wanted. That's just how she was comfortable making a decision. She wanted stability and patience. And this was hard for me. And I feel like I ran into another rep. You know, we would all see each other at different clients' places and we'd meet in the parking lot and chat. And I remember someone saying, this is a great client, but you got to sit with her. She will not order from you if you don't sit with her. So I was like, oh, okay, I can do that. So I made sure to put my meetings when I had time to sit with her and have a 45-minute conversation on the couch. So I wasn't backing it up against somewhere I had to be. And then at the very end of that 45-minute conversation, we would take care of business in about 90 seconds. And we had a great relationship and we got along great and I loved her, but I learned that we are different and that's okay. So as I'm talking, you're probably thinking of people who you know who are high S, and likely it's you. It's a loyal group. They're steady. They're not hopping from job to job. They want everyone to do well. They want to take care of everyone. They like stability and routine. And some of us as entrepreneurs go into business because we don't want to do the same thing every day. And if it is you, you'll have no problem identifying this group because they're likely having careers in healthcare, teaching, coaching, nonprofit. Their motto is be supportive. They want a stable environment. Routine is good to them. Here's what they care about. They care about relationships and connection, not feeling rushed, feeling secure in their decision. So what are the biggest mistakes photographers make with this group? Pushing them too quickly. Hurry, decide. It makes them uncomfortable. They're risk averse. They're skeptical. And this is why a pushy, salesy system is such a turnoff for this type of person, because they want to slow down and make sure they don't make a mistake. They like having comfort in their decision. Here's how to serve the high S. Slow down and walk them through a process. The very beginning, I say, this is what the process looks like. We're going to do this, and then we're going to do this, and then this. In step 2, I review what we're doing today and what we're doing the next 3 steps. Step 3, I'm reviewing step 3 and then 4 and then 5. Step 4, I'm reviewing 4 and then 5. And It gives them such comfort because they see what's coming. They know what's coming. By the ordering appointment, they're fully ready to order. And with the S's, you want to be prepared. You want to have the price list nicely printed. You want to go over their order to make sure that they're crystal clear on everything. The hesitation with S's is they might hesitate to speak up, or they might ghost you if they're confused about part of the process and they don't want any type of conflict or uncomfortable conversation because they want everybody to be happy. So we want to make it easy for them so that there is minimal conflict or no conflict. I'm always watching body language of the S's, and I do this with all clients, really. But with S's especially, I'm looking for them to give me nonverbal clues that something's wrong, so that I, being a high I want to make it fun for them, and I want to solve that problem. D's are ready to go and make the decision. I's are like, this is so fun. I love your process. S's are going to be thanking you for holding their hand throughout, because without it, they're going to get overwhelmed. They're going to fear change because they want stability, and they're afraid of putting something on their wall that they're going to not like and have to look at for years and years and years. So we want to remove the risk for this very skeptical client. Here's the beautiful part about working with S's. The first time I changed my system and I was like, I've got to go to a higher touch system and really serve my clients. The first client I did it with was like, oh, Sarah, I don't know if I'm a good test case because I can never make a decision. Photographers hate working with me because I can never make a decision. I was like, oh my goodness. And by the end, she said, Sarah, I can't believe that you made this so easy for me. She said, I don't need any extra meetings or help. She's like, I know exactly what I want, and you helped me and do this for everyone. And I was like, oh my gosh, I just got goosebumps all over, and I'm so excited. That's what a good system does for the high S. And here's what's great for the long-term value of a client. They don't want to go work with a new photographer every year. They value long-term relationships, which is great for having repeat clients. Once you train them to come back to you, they will. At the end of every appointment, you ask them, when's a great time for you to come back? What do you need next? And then you say, okay, in a year and a half, I'll follow up with you, and they'll be so appreciative. The other thing I want to say about S is being a high I and a high D, I have to watch my energy. Some people love fire hose Sarah Petty at 100. Maybe not many people. I am high energy and I can bring it, right? Hi, how is everybody today? But I also know, to someone who's very steady and cautious, I've got to meet them where they are. So I'm very conscious, especially if I'm working with an empath, right? I'm very conscious of what energy I bring because it can be a lot for people. And it's not that I have to act like I'm someone I'm not, but it's like we've learned when we're in a library, we act a certain way. When we go to a church, we act a certain way. That's the Sarah Petty I bring out. And if you're an S or a C, which I'll talk about, you might have to bring a little more energy when you're working with D's and I's. For me, when I show up with an S, I bring my slow and steady energy because that feels supportive and patient. And I walk them through the same process I walk other people through. I enjoy sitting with them on the couch and getting to know all about them. And so for me, it's really a treat because I can slow my ID brain down a little bit. And those are the really meaningful relationships that we can build. Now, I'm going to get to what I think, and I'm so sorry, but I think can be the most challenging type to sell to. And I'm sorry if this is you, but I'm curious if you agree with this about yourself if you are a high C. C is the conscientious analyzer. This is the detail-oriented, accurate, systematic, precise person. These are often your perfectionists. They overanalyze. They can't make a decision until they know absolutely everything, which can lead to paralysis by analysis. They have a fear of making mistakes, so they're going to look at it 360 degrees of what if this, what if that. And if that's you and you're running a business, you might say, oh my gosh, I know that about myself, and that's what's keeping me stuck in my business. I'm over analyzing. So many of you guys are perfectionists, and that's what makes business hard because it's not like school where you memorize and you take a test. It's a framework that you have to live within, and you're never going to have all the answers. So if that's frustrated you, Just know it's okay, and you can be successful as a C once you understand that about yourself. One of the mottos we have in our coaching program is imperfect action beats perfect inaction. It helps a lot of our C students because that sounded funny. Our C students, because they get paralysis by analysis and they overthink things. So we have to say, trust the process, trust the system. So systems are great for you as an entrepreneur, but they're also great for your clients who are high C, okay? They want to know the steps. They want to see the staircase before they take a step. And you can identify these folks because they're often in careers where they have to have a high attention to detail, right? Where they can thrive with their level of analysis. So accountants, I want my accountant to have a high attention to detail. Data analysts, lab tech, project managers, the people on my team and my company who are at the hub of all the projects and they're doling out work to everyone, they need to have high C because they miss one little nuance and a whole thing falls apart. I can't have that. Their quality control, they're in jobs and careers that have a high attention to detail. So where I told you the D's motto is get it done, the C's motto is get it right. They will slow the boat down to get it right. So they care about accuracy. They care about details. They care about making the right decision, having all of the information. I had a high C client who came in and she was, I think, a CPA, and she came into her ordering appointment with a printed spreadsheet of what she was going to order with sales tax and everything printed out for me. I was like, okay. Well, we went through the process, the ordering appointment that day, and she ended up wanting more than what she originally had calculated. So she said, I'll send you a new spreadsheet when I get home. I thought, well, hey, can I send you about 8 other invoices from other clients that you could do that for? I didn't, but I thought it. So how do you serve this client? For example, if a D or an I asks you, how big is that? I would say it's like 20 or 25 inches. Like it's about this big. So it can go great over a small cabinet next to a lamp. And they're like, perfect, I got it. When an S wants to know, I bring it over, show them, hold it up into spaces, give them the reassurance that it's gonna look good. But high C's literally wanna know that it's 36.5 inches by 42.5 inches. And it sits off the wall 3/4 of an inch. Okay, they want precise. They want the details. What are the biggest mistakes photographers make with this type of a person is not providing enough detail. So if you're vague and approximate, or what I see more is photographers who don't have a clear, simple system that prevents them from getting stuck or falling into paralysis by analysis, you're going to have trouble helping them place their order. With the high C, we ask for a photo of their wall with measurements so that I can put the artwork on their wall to scale so that they can see exactly what it looks like. Your high S will appreciate that as well, because I want to take the fear of making a mistake away from them. And once you do that, they're able to easily make a decision, and they're fantastic to work with. So sometimes I hear photographers complaining about a client, and I always say, like, it is never on the client. It's on you to figure out how to serve the client. If you're saying my clients can't make a decision, it's because you weren't serving them in the way they needed to be served. The D wants you to be prepared and efficient. They're easy to serve if you follow a system that gets them what they want quickly. The I just wants to have fun with you and feel excited. So you show up as your happiest self. You don't have to be Peppy McPeppersons, but show up in a positive way and connect with them, find affinities. Who do you know that they know? And don't schedule them back to back if you're an introvert, because they're going to exhaust you. And that's okay. The S's want you to hold their hand through a clear process. Plan to spend more time on each step with them and make sure you're confirming the appointments and giving them the confidence that you're going to do what you say you're going to do. Because then when you tell them that something's going to look appropriate in a certain size on their wall, they're going to have faith and trust in you. And then working with C's, they're going to want to know every detail. So pull out the tape measure if you need to, or don't be afraid to say, let me look that up. And I don't want to take your time right now, but I will get back to you. Okay, you don't have to be perfect here, but just saying, I don't know, or it's about this isn't going to cut it. And listen, the more you do this, the more comfortable you will get. And I'm curious, as you were listening, I'd love to know what you think you are. Put that in the comments below. I want to hear. So here are your action steps, my friend. Start to identify what your human tendencies are. Are you a D, I, S, or C, or a combination? And here's what's interesting. You might be really, really high in one and low in the others, or you might be closer around the 50% line on 3 or 4 of them. It's rare, as far as I know, that you would be above 50% on all 4, but I do think maybe it's happened. The point is, you might have really strong strength and a really low weakness, or you may be well balanced. Again, this is awareness, and knowing who you are is so important so that you know how to talk to other people who are different than you and help them make better decisions. Because if people can't decide what they want to order and place their order with you, you can't stay in business. So after you've identified it with yourself, start paying attention to your client's behavior. Listen to what they do for a living. Notice how they communicate. Are they quick and chatty and direct, or are they asking for a lot of details? Do they seem cautious and risk averse? And you don't have to be perfect at this, friend. You just have to start being aware, because at the end of the day, successful photographers aren't just paying attention to their photography. They're paying attention to, how can I work better with people? And when you understand how other people make a purchasing decision that's different than you, but that they feel great about, charging premium prices becomes effortless. Now, understanding client psychology is just one piece of building a premium portrait photography business. And listen, if you want to continue to improve your communication skills, I'm putting multiple resources, especially including where to take the DISC assessment. So if that becomes out of date and they stop doing it, please comment and we will find newer ones and keep those links updated. So go check out those resources and keep learning, my friend, because the more you learn, the easier it all gets.